Hey guys, we're talking mid prices in today's video. They can make or break your team, and if you haven't picked the right ones, it could really hurt. We're chatting mid prices. See you in the video. Joe, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I know you say pick the right mid prices for your team, mate. We've essentially made a team of mid prices here today to show
That's true.
everybody what it looks like. So
Yep.
we're gonna
If you want
go
to save
through
some
it.
cash, and spend all your trades by round 10, look at our mid pricer team. You're going to be right.
Here it is. Behold, with 4 million in the bank, we have sort of a kind of a team here.
Yeah.
We'll go line by line of these mid prices, and we'll have a talk about them. Not too long though, because they are mid-priced madness. But we'll start with Kitty Coleman, who
Yeah.
drove Collingwood mad almost.
I just want to say before we start, right, this year is almost parallels compared to last year, where last year we had, your Hoppers and Setterfield and a few of these other guys who were, really, really good mid prices. And you could almost build your team around that. From what we've seen so far, at least in my opinion, we're going more guns and rookies and probably putting 2 or 3 of these guys in your teams at a max, you reckon?
Well, it depends on the line. There
Yeah,
are
that's
some
true.
interesting ones, particularly forward. There's some interesting ones.
But, we don't have those set and forget guys like we did last year. So, yeah, it is a bit of ground searching and whatnot. It really depends as well on how good the rookies are. Because if the rookies are very good, then you almost don't need the mid prices. So,
correct. But you don't know if the rookies are going to be good until they play.
No, that's true.
But we'll start with Kitty Coleman, someone who we did say play, and he played really well, especially in that final series. He went absolutely bananas. To be honest, I don't want to go there because I almost expect a lot of teams to just do their homework and put a bit of effort into stop being that sort of ball movement, which he got so easily out of the back line. I think anyone trying to, if they're going to continue to play that way, I think Brisbane are going to be caught out, to be honest. They made it to the grand final, and everyone's going to want to be clawing for him. So for me, Kitty Coleman is a skip. Despite how exciting he is, I won't go there personally.
Yeah, he's a no from me as well. I think the price is a real awkward one where you have to, it has to be a good pick. Otherwise, it's going to really struggle. I don't want to be spending a lot of picks changing and sideways in players. So, yes, Rich is gone, but I think there was some talk that there might be some other players coming into that role as well. Or Kitty didn't do as well with Rich gone last year. So, it's a no from me. I'd rather just pay up another 100K and get an actual premium in the defense.
Exactly. And there's still Darcy Wilmot, and there's still Connor McKenna, of course, who could into that point. Who knows if what we saw last year is going to persist. Talk to us about Marchbank.
He's someone who has been a lot more expensive in recent times and is coming off major injury. He was getting poached by other clubs. They were like, Caleb Marchbank, come over to us. We'll give you a contract, but he decided to stay at the Blues. And, I really think this year they might actually reward him with some time in the back line. He might have to fight a spot with some other people, but he is an option down back. Probably averages you that 50 to 60 mark, but at 260K? It's still going to make you some cash off there. He probably would pick a Zach Williams instead, who's a bit cheaper and also plays down there, but as an option, he's definitely there.
Yeah, I'm going to skip him though. I might be skipping Heath Chapman as well, despite news and reports that he could be pushing up the ground more into a wing sort of role. But for me, I just don't think wingers are historically the most reliable when it comes to Supercoach scoring. His saving grace is that he is only 250K, so he doesn't have to score super high to make you that money. And he could also get that defensive mid DPP, which could come in really handy depending on how our team setup goes. So, look, I'm still probably going to be fading Heath Chapman. I'm going to be waiting to hear from Damo. As soon as Damo gets convinced that Heath Chapman is good to go, then I'll listen to him because he knows everything Fremantle.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. It's a fade for me, but another one of those players who were very expensive at one point, and you can kind of count their being as expensive as their potential of scoring as well. So Chapman was a bit of a guy similar price a few years ago, jumped up, was about 400K last year, got injured, and then is now returning. So cheap option in the back line if you're looking for someone, and you're not set on a Zach Williams or someone else.
Which you probably should be.
Yeah, probably. It's better. At least we went through some options and it wasn't just pick Zach Williams. So we've got some other guys there to consider.
We went through 3 people before saying pick Zach Williams.
Yes, Joe.
It's not too bad. I wouldn't pick Massimo D'Ambrosio either. He struggled to break into our side at the Bombers. He has quite a bit of work to do. Yes, he's a great kick. He's a beautiful kick of the football. Don't get me wrong. That wasn't the area of his game that he needed to work on. He needs to work on his defensive efforts and on his defensive positioning. And that's part of the reason why he was used as a super sub and he would pinch hit forward. So I'm not entirely sure he's going to have a sensational role at the Hawks. If they're willing to let him just play his style, he could be interesting to have a look at. But I personally don't think they're going to be sacrificing the way they play just to give this guy some of the pill. So I'd probably stay away from Massimo as well.
Yeah, he's a watch and see for me in the preseason games, just to kind of check out what his positioning's like and things like that. There is potential for him to score in that club. They need speed. Speaking to Daz from Daz Talks Footy, he does have a spot if he wants it, if he can win it. So it could be the steal of kind of these defender premiums or defender mid-prices if Zach Williams shits the bed, but it's a big wait and see. And you're comparing him to other rookies and stuff that you know are going to play as well. So 50-50.
Yeah, he has to earn the spot. That's the thing. He has to take it. He has to earn it. And by him going to Hawthorn, he couldn't earn his spot in Essendon. And him going to Hawthorn, despite us having a contract on the table for him, I can't help but feel that he's trying to take the easy way out when it comes to getting games. And I would have loved to have seen him stick it out at the club, try and fight hard to go past the Dyson Heppel, for example. But to me, it looks like he's taken the easy path of going to a redeveloping side like Hawthorn and just simply expecting games. So, yeah, it's a massive watch and see for Massimo.
Yes, yeah, definitely for me too. Run us through the Zach Williams pick, Joe. I think every team I've seen has got Zach Williams in it at the moment.
Yeah, because Zach Williams is a gun. He came across from the GWS Giants to the Carlton Football Club with massive hopes and aspirations. He was an absolute sensational halfback at the Giants before coming across to Carlton, who they were hoping to convert him into one of those explosive, dynamic midfielders that they didn't have at the time. But he's been absolutely decimated by injury for basically the entire time that he's been at the Blues. Ever since he got there, he's been injured through ACLs. So that's why he is massively, massively discounted given all the games that he's missed. So he is not going to be playing in the midfield anymore. That Carlton team, for the duration of his injuries, has continued to recruit more, midfielders and wingers. So there's no more spot for Zach Williams in that midfield. He's finally right to come back and play in his rightful position at halfback. And he has shown in the past that he has been able to score really well in that role. He is an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, it's more of you don't pick Zach Williams because he's going to get injured more than Zach Williams showing himself. Just kind of the potential for scoring and whatnot. It's too hard to pass up. And at that price, you can downgrade to basically anybody.
Correct, 100%. Do you know much about Marcus Winhager? Because I know I had big raps on him last year.
He wasn't on my list of mid-prices, so we'll have to take us through the pick.
Very well. Marcus Winhager he's one that has been a project player a bit for the St Kilda Saints. They've been slowly working away at him as Jack Steele's protege. He's over time been given a lot of roles, more so defensive accountability roles as a tagger, and learning his craft in the midfield very slowly. A lot of these gun midfielders in the past that started their midfield career as taggers ended up becoming A-grade talents like Jack Steele, like Tuke Miller as well, for example. There's a bunch of different people who started off as taggers that ended up becoming great. And I think that's what St Kilda have in mind for Marcus Windhager. He gets some CBAs. He's in a great age bracket. There's not too much expectation on him. Another preseason under his belt. I know the people at St Kilda really like him. And I think he's certainly capable of taking the next step in his career. At $320K, it is a bit more expensive than others. However, he's certainly capable of pushing above that and making you maybe a solid $100,000. It just depends on the role that he's given, just how far into his development Ross Lyon thinks he is. A massive keep an eye out on Marcus Windhager.
Fair enough. Let's head into the midfield, Joe. It's been a bit of a tricky one in the midfield because we've talked about Matt Crouch and a couple of others in our midfield premium video, and we'll talk about some other guys being a bit cheaper in our rookie video. But as I said at the start, there's not that much guys. There's not many people who, outside of like a James Jordan or a Harms, who we'll talk about today, that have really left their clubs and left their teams for more opportunity. Starting off from the top, George Wardlaw. We kind of saw a little bit what he was doing at North Melbourne. We know how good the kid is. It's more about keeping his body straight. At that price, I won't be picking him, but he is definitely a watch and see, because if this guy's starting to pump out really massive scores, we know how good he can do. He's a second-year player that can easily put out hundreds, that tackles and dominates against men. So it's a watch. Who's next up on the list, Joe?
Well, if we're going by price, it would probably be Ruben Jinby at 354, 700. He's probably one of the highlights of the West Coast Eagles youth over there. He was a tackling machine himself as well. And we know tackling is obviously a good source of points. Not quite as much as fantasy, but here in the game as well, it's really important. He's a big body framed player, so having another preseason into him will certainly be really beneficial for his development. But at 354K, I'm not gonna go anywhere near it, to be honest.
Yeah, he's a bit of a watch and see, similar to a Wardlaw. Like any player can force himself into your team. Excuse me, but yeah, I don't think it's a wait and see for me. He'll be a fantastic player for West Coast, but maybe not for our Supercoach teams this year.
100%. Well, I'm not. When we say won't go near him, obviously we are open to having our minds be changed because when we've got absolutely nothing against any of these players. Massive respect to all of them. That's why we're talking about them in the first place. But when we say not thinking about going there, if the evidence suggests that hey, you probably should have him, then we are definitely open to changing our minds. But as of the 5th of January, when we're recording 2024, he is not going to be in my side. Next up would probably be Hunter Clark, right?
Yeah, he's someone I just flagged. I thought maybe someone to keep an eye out on. Has been maybe not super premium numbers, but has scored very well in the past, depending on his role. Did pop out a couple of 100s, few high 90 scores last year, in between getting injured and everything else as well. And one of the things is that he stayed at his club, right? He's come in, North Melbourne, a few other clubs were asking for him, and then he's decided to stay. So they've obviously told him, hey, if your body gets right, there's a spot for you on field. Maybe he's not a keeper, but has the potential in a few good weeks to actually get to close to 500K, which would net us, 150K in cash.
Yeah, exactly. Next off the cab would probably be Paddy Dow. He's made the move to the Saints to join Hunter Clark there. Obviously, leaving Carlton, it would be incredible if anyone was convinced to actually start Paddy Dow. But look, there is something to be said, though, for him. There was a brief stint where there were some injuries in that engine room at Carlton. He got some CBAs. He was given some opportunity, and he was able to show us and show the club what he was capable of. And he had a few games where he scored in the 80s and the 90s. So that's really impressive. That's why he's gone ahead and now exercise his right to get some more opportunities elsewhere at St Kilda. But scoring 90s at 307K would be decent. I mean, 307. He's priced at 52. If he's scoring 90s, even 80s, he's going to make you 150K. And if a player makes you 150K, then that is a successful trade. So you can, if you reckon Paddy Dow will be given that opportunity to score 80 to 90, then on that metric, it would be a successful selection. Personally, I'm not going there, but if that's what your analysis indicates, then go for it. Trust your gut. Wild card.
Yeah, it's an interesting one there, Joe. Next up on the list is Angus Sheldrick. So last year maybe was the breakout year that we never got really. Between rounds 13 and 17, scored a 61 and 91, a 102 and a 53. So pre-injury was averaging, let's say 80 odd, which for a guy at 300K is fantastic value there. Especially, if you had got him at 165K like he was last year, you'd be laughing. One of the things to monitor with him is just the injury worries, but as that clearance player at Sydney, he's bloody fantastic. And that's what you're hoping he gets the position. And then, we're big wait and see for us there.
Absolutely. Next player off the bat would be James Harms, I think. James Harms, interesting one. Again, moving across from Melbourne to the Bulldogs. They recruited him. They wanted him to come. He wanted to go. And that's what he got, his wish to go. So I think there are a lot of midfielders over there at the Bulldogs. I don't think he's going to be playing as a midfielder. I think primarily what his role is going to be is a high half forward, using his grunt work to sort of be a link-up player between the midfield and the forward line, where there were quite a few times there just wasn't that connection. So I think James Harms could be getting some points from some score assists, but I think he might be that link, that lead-up player, receive a pass from a midfielder like a Libba, for example, or a Bond, and then he'll hit up a leading target in Norton or Jamara, for example. So I reckon Harms could be a real interesting selection, especially in the forward line. We've got him in the midfield for now because the forward line is sort of full with a bunch of single, forward-only options. Yeah. I am not against James Harms.
No, me too. Especially, I think round 6 we might get a few of these midfield rookies who are rotating between the two. So be able to at least loophole and do some tricky things, like we know always helps with injuries. It could be a good fit for us.
Yep.
Next up on the list is Jasper Fletcher. So bit of a weird pick, but we know how good he was last year. Starting at 157K, got to about 300K at points. So there is potential for scoring, and we know with the last name, with the scoring potential, he's going to play basically best 22 next year. So depending on role, I think last year he played a bit of halfback and then wing. If he does similar things this year, we could, could be a sneaky option if you don't have the cash to upgrade. If you've already got a Harley Reid and a few other people in your team, it could be a good downgrade option. Wait and see for me. The only thing that's really killing him for me is that double buy, because you don't want these guys. Yes, he plays round 0, and we get to see what his role is, which is great. But then a couple of weeks later, he gets a week off, so it hurts.
Yeah, exactly. And the last player to round us off, Elijah Hewitt. He's also here. You would probably have him in your forward line as opposed to your midfield, but he has that DPP eligibility, which can come in really clutch. He's definitely going to play. I think he's in West Coast best 22. He's obviously a young player coming into his second season in the league, and he is very highly rated internally at the club. I know I've got some West Coast friends who are really keeping a close eye on him and are actually really tempted to have him in their starting team. So definitely keep a close eye on Elijah Hewitt. He is very talented. We saw what he can do. He's not afraid of winning a contested ball either. So keep a close eye on Elijah Hewitt.
He's just bad at disposals, like we saw in our
That's all he is.
Best kicks, worst kicks video.
Correct. We'll move to the forward line because we're not going to talk about any mid-prices in the ruck. We've already spoken about Tristan Cherry in the previous video, and there's no one else really worth discussing apart from him.
Yeah, pretty much. If we go from this list, I think first up is Tom Lynch. We saw a few years ago what Tex Walker could do at a similar price, coming back fit, coming back healthy. If he's in real consideration in my team, if I can see in those preseason games, he does play round 0, so it's good. But if he does well in those preseason games, it could be cool. Come in my team, make an easy 150K, keep you around until the first buy, or not first buy, until the first DPP change, and then quick flip to a premium who's just come into my forward line.
Yeah, and if he's capable of scoring really well, kicking a bag against Gold Coast, who their backline is no slouch. I mean, they got like Sam Collins, for example, who is a very respectable defender. If he can kick a bag in round 0, then it makes his selection all the more worthwhile because it means he's going to be jumping up in price a lot for his first price rise in round 2. So I'd have a look at Tom Lynch for sure. Despite him being a key forward.
If he goes big in round 0, you could almost be forced to put him in. Because if he pops out at 80 or a 90, he's going to jump up an easy 50, 60K. And you're going to want that in your team.
Yeah, I know he's a key forward, and I don't like key forwards, but he's one of the best key forwards in the comp when he's healthy. So that's an exception there. I guess next on the list would be James Jordan, 275K. He's moved across from Melbourne to the Swans. He knows what he's going to get. And he's probably told the Swans, and the Swans are like, yep, you will get more mid-time. We will give you more midfield minutes. I'm sure that news came out before Taylor Adams moved across, so I'm not sure how happy James Jordan is about that. But I can see him being in their best 22 or best 23, and I can see him playing just about every week. He's a very respectable player. He's got DPP. I reckon he can make 150K, no problems.
I think so as well. And I think we know how good he's been at other clubs. For him to just come to Sydney and be like, cool, that's all right. So, yeah, I think he is done being the super sub, Joe? It's tired. I'm sorry. He's done being the super sub, and he's ready to play best 22 every week. So, yeah. If he does well round 0, he's another one like Tom Lynch that could force himself into your team. You're not going to keep him forever, but he is going to do well.
No, you're not. Next on the card would be Cam McKenzie.
Yeah, it wasn't really one of my picks. It was one of yours, but debuted last year, early draft pick. Has kind of floated a little bit around that mid-forward role. Did have some decent scores, a few 80s, maybe a 90 or so last year, so it wasn't too bad. But Hawthorn's a bit of a tricky mix this year. Really feels like they're rebuilding for the future, and does he have a spot? Does he not have a spot? It's something to monitor over the preseason for me.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. I do like him, and I think there's a lot of optimism about him in the Hawthorn team, as well as I saw him live when we played against him in round 1, and he almost single-handedly was tearing us apart in that first quarter before we put the blowtorch on. They were doing really well. So I can really appreciate him. Moving to Jack Billings would be the next one. Billings moved across now at Melbourne. I think they want he's played in a wing before at St Kilda. He's obviously very talented. A change of scenery could be really important for him and helping getting his career back on track, take that next step. I think he will play best 22. They've lost some players. I think there are some holes. They do like to use wingers more than other clubs. They were the ones that really made the wing role very famous with Hunt and Langdon now in this late 21st century. So wouldn't be surprised if Goodwin puts Billings to work straight away. And he's not a bad ball user as well, trying to kick the ball inside forward 50. So I reckon Billings is going to feature in my team in round 1, I think.
Yeah, for me, it's just injury. So if he gets over those injuries, if he's got a spot, it's hard to pass up. I mean, this guy was close to premium status back in the day and has fallen off a little bit, but we don't need him to play every week. Just come in and play the first 5 or 6, get those scores in, and then you're good.
Exactly.
Now, do you want me to talk about Comben and you talk about Jack Hayes?
Sure. You go talk to us about Comben.
Cool. So Charlie Comben, North Melbourne player, obviously, has decided, well, the club's decided to move him into the back line. Has been numerous different reports and interviews, whatever, from the club saying, yep, that seems to be the position for him. With Ben Mackay out, we are looking for a tall player. The guy is 200 centimeters. His issue in the forward line has always just getting his body kind of bashed around a bit. And I think in the back line, there's been a few players who have done something similar where they were forwards, they moved to the back line, and then they became absolute superstars because they could negate a little bit of that. So great intercept, great contested mark, decent enough footy IQ, could be a spot, could be a pick if you're really struggling to get a player in. The forward line isn't super shallow, but it is a little bit shallow. And if you see him playing in the preseason, if you see him doing well, not round zero because we don't play, but in those preseason games, have a think. Have a think. Say, hey, look, can I carry this guy for a little while? Could be playing key back, intercept role at North Melbourne. So it's an option. One that you won't be thinking about because I think most people are going Lynch and Billings and maybe Jordan to fill up the side, but for something to think about.
Another one to really think about is Jack Hayes. Really think about Jack Hayes. And I want you to remember his awesome debut. Incredible debut against Collingwood. He went absolutely bananas and he got injured, I think, in the next game after that. And the Saints did the right thing by him and extended him. He did an ACL. I think he scored like over 120 on debut against Collingwood. It was something ridiculous. And what he's got is he's got size and ability to pinch it in the ruck. And for 228K, a forward that can pinch it in the ruck who's capable of scoring 120 plus for 228K is absolute value. The only thing you got to keep an eye on with him is whether or not he's healthy, whether or not he gets through the preseason and he's ticking all those boxes. If so, for 228K, you got to really take this guy seriously. I know I will.
Yeah, he's definitely a watch and see. Depends what St Kilda are going to do with their kind of ruck setup as well. Does Massimo come in? We've talked about him a little bit in those preseason in the preseason video for the forward line. Does he come in and take the role? Does Hayes come in and take the role? Big wait and see through the preseason games, but 100% agree with you, Joe. Could be the smoky, could be the hidden pick of this season.
And with that, guys, we went through basically a whole team worth of mid-prices, sorting out the chuff from the chat. I don't know. I forgot how that saying goes, but we basically sorted out the good from the bad. Let us know in the comments down below what you think. If there are any other mid-prices that we didn't talk about in this video that you'd like to ask us about, leave that in the comments down below.
100%. And guys, we're trying to grow the channel. So we're trying to get to that magic 2K subs number and then build it through the preseason and into the regular season as well. We've loved having you guys come on, comment on the stuff, but also like and share on YouTube, on Twitter, and then we're building our Facebook as well. So jump on that. The link's up in the description.
And make sure you hit that notification bell because we are pumping out the content. Stay tuned because the next video will be about those beloved and all-important rookies. So stay tuned for that, guys.
100%. Remember, guys, here at the Centre Bounce, we do the hard work so you don't have to. For now.
For now.